Did you know that?
No, I don't wear contacts.
Look it up. Now you do because I just told you.
Yeah, do your intro.
Shut up! Hello my sweeties and welcome back to my channel. If you don't already know me, my name is Elise and thank you for joining my spooky little family. In today's video, we are talking about Together. Let's get into the video. Oh my god, baddies, I'm so happy we are here to talk about this movie today. Oh my gosh, girl. I got to see Together early with my lovely, lovely friend, Zero Gravity. We had such a great time. We got an early screener. It was lovely. I had such a great time. And the movie, girl, it was crazy. So let's get right into her. Directed by Michael Shanks, starring Alison Brie and Dave Franco, Together follows a couple years into their relationship who find themselves at a crossroads as they move to the country, abandoning all that is familiar in their lives except each other. With tensions already flaring, a nightmarish encounter with a mysterious, unnatural force threatens to corrupt their lives, their love, and their flesh. Girl, you know I eat this body horror shit up. Oh my god. I am so happy. We're so back. I gotta be real with you guys. 2025 so far. We've had some hits because I was obsessed with The Ugly Stepsister. Another great body horror gem right there. That and Bring Her Back. I haven't had too many movies that I've been like obsessed with. And I have to be honest, Together pleasantly surprised me. So this film was also produced by Dave Franco and Alison Brie, who, if you guys didn't know, is also a real life married couple. So it was really fun to see them act together in this movie. Of course, we did see them a couple years back in Dave Franco's directorial debut, The Rental, which I had a good time with. I think The Rental was fun. It came out at a time where I was thirsty for new horror, and so that one was a lot of fun. And I'm so happy that this duo is back and they are doing horror because they are incredible in this movie. So let's get right into our performances because, girl, they are really meaty and have a lot. I ate it right up. So Dave plays Tim and Allison plays Millie. And Tim and Millie are not having a good time, to say the least. This couple is clearly going through a lot and they are going through significant changes in their relationship, and somehow they are not letting each other go, even though it appears like this relationship is kind of coming to an end. Now, Alison Brie and Dave Franco play off of each other incredibly well. Obviously, their chemistry is off the charts, and obviously because they are married. But these two were so magnetic to watch. I think that both of them were not only great dramatically, but they were incredible, obviously, comically. And of course, I am sure that is due to the fact that both of them have comedic backgrounds, which I love how the comedy plays into this rather dark film. I will do my best to not spoil Together today in this review because ultimately this is a movie that I do feel like you have to see in a theater, and this is also a movie I feel like is really important to not spoil the ending. I think the ending is something really crazy and not at all what I was expecting. And I definitely don't want to give that away for those of you that haven't seen the movie yet or kind of questioning if you want to go see it. This film obviously heavily talks about the dangers of codependency. And it talks a lot about toxic relationships and just relationships in general, how in some relationships people tend to lose themselves in their partner, and it does it so incredibly well. And I'm happy that with a movie like this that is talking about something that I think can be relatable for a lot of people in any type of relationship you've ever had. It doesn't even have to be a romantic one. It could be a friendship that is kind of seeing the end. And I think that the film does such a great job at being kind of universally relatable in that aspect. So with that, I am happy that we have a lot of comedic relief, because the film feels very, very heavy. And I think the script is so great. The script is actually one of my favorite aspects of this movie. You guys all know I loved Sanctuary from a few years ago with Margaret Qualley and Christopher Abbott. And I feel like Together is similar in that same aspect of basically having two characters in one place. Obviously, we have other characters in the film. We have some side characters, and we have another character that becomes important later on. And that character is Jamie, played by Damon Harriman. And he is also really great, and I love his introduction into the film. But ultimately, the movie really is basically Alison Brie and Dave Franco the whole time, and I loved it that way. I'm a sucker for that intimate two people stuck in one place, two people just bouncing energy off of each other, because I do feel like in those types of films, we really get to spend a lot of time with our characters, and we get to see a lot of their dynamic, and it just feels so intimate. It almost feels like you're watching something you're not really supposed to watch, if that makes sense. This movie immediately was made for me just off of that aspect alone. Something else that I really enjoyed outside of the script in this one is the way that they frame scares, and also how well they do the scares, because really the scariest aspect of this movie is what is going on between these two in their relationship. But there's obviously other things that factor in, and obviously with this being a body horror, we do see a lot of icky, goopy stuff, and I think they just did all of that so incredibly well. There is a really great jump scare towards the beginning of the film, and it's kind of like this dream sequence, and I thought it was done brilliantly. And the opening to this movie as well is one of the best openings in a horror film this year. I think it's super powerful. It makes a lot of sense by the time you get to the end of the film, and I just love it. There's clearly a lot of homages to other different body horror films in Together, and with the opening sequence, I do see a lot of homages to The Thing. And also, funny enough, while watching this movie, I would categorize Together as kind of similar to Possession 1981. And that is mostly because of the relationship dynamic and obviously the codependency aspect. In something like Possession 1981, obviously we have a film that is incredibly over the top, very, very European. The acting is very, very heavily stylized, and Together is a little bit more quaint. It's not as loud and big as Possession, but there is a lot of similarities between Tim and Millie and Isabel Adjani and Sam Neill's characters in the film. And it's so wild how after I got out of Together, I found myself really being deep in that dark space, similar to how I felt after seeing Possession 1981 for the first time. I think if anyone has ever been in a relationship that was kind of going sour, or you felt like you were losing yourself in another person, then you could definitely relate to it to some degree. Now, let me just say, I hope this level of codependency never finds me. That is one of the big things that me and Zero kept saying after we got out of the theater and we did our duo review over on the Big Gold Belt Media channel, which you guys should go and check that out because we have some fun little thoughts on that too over there. But I will say, it is a film that is hard to watch because it is ultimately hard to watch two people clearly fighting for this relationship that has definitely seen its course. And it's rough because I think we've kind of all been in situations where we have, you know, been friends with someone who's been in a relationship that you clearly were like, oh, okay, like maybe you guys really shouldn't be together anymore. Are you guys okay? I hope everything's okay at home. So it's hard to watch in that regard too, because I found myself reminiscing on those moments in my life. So it really is a powerful film. And I think that's all I can say without spoiling the story for you guys. I have to be honest, I do really want to talk about the ending because I think the ending is something really interesting and would be fun to dissect. So if you haven't seen Together yet and you just wanted to know if you should without spoilers, baby, you absolutely should. Get your ass in the theater. I'm telling you right now. I'm hypnotizing you and you're gonna go. You're gonna go sit and you're gonna go watch these two hotties in this movie. You're gonna go. Okay? And then you're gonna come back here and you're gonna pick up with me right where you left off because now we are going to dive into the finale. So there will be spoilers for this section. I'm telling you right now. Don't complain to me in the comments, babe. I'm telling you, spoiler section ahead. And for those of you that are off, bye. Okay, so I felt like it was way too hard to do a spoiler-free review of Together. This movie requires a deeper talk about the finale. So this movie kind of surprised me because I am one that I kind of go with the flow of movies. I don't try to figure out what is, you know, who's plotting and what's going on. Like, I want the movie to organically take me there, so I kind of don't do all of that. It really isn't until my second viewing that I start picking up on things and little hints that like, oh, that makes sense. He was in on it because of this. That is actually how I got super into my favorite horror film, Rosemary's Baby, because I really liked it when I first watched it, but I was completely shocked that it was, you know, her husband was against her. So it's so interesting how when I watched it again, I was like, oh my God, he's kind of giving us little clues along the way that it's him. I have no idea how I didn't notice before. So that's usually how I tend to view movies. So Together, while I do feel like this movie is a very good body horror film, I do feel like they kept some stuff a little bit safe. So in the finale of the film, when we find out the twist and we find out that Jamie is actually part of this cult situation and he is trying to get them to fuse to become one because that is essentially what he did with his partner. Then things kind of, for me, I was like, oh, okay, well that makes sense because I did feel like he was acting a little bit strange. So I will say that in that aspect, I didn't think the reveal of it being Jamie was all that shocking, but I still feel like it works really, really well. And I had no problem with it, actually. I found Jamie to be a really interesting character. I think the whole dynamic between him and Millie was really fun to watch. And it was interesting because the film kind of makes you think that maybe Jamie is kind of interested in Millie and kind of like has a thing for her. But then as the film goes on, you kind of realize that's not the case and he just wants them to fuse because he genuinely believes that if they were to fuse, they would live a better life. So it's interesting because talking about codependency and how sometimes in not very good relationship dynamics, some people, a lot of the times in toxic relationships, can find themselves really kind of morphing into their partner and really being heavily codependent on their partner. So I think this film, it takes that whole concept, which is something so real that so many people go through, and it makes it this horrific thing visually. So it's not just a mental thing now it's a physical transformation, which I think is brilliant. If I'm being honest, I think it's brilliant. I love it because in those dynamics, you do see the person kind of changing and becoming someone they're not. So it was really cool to see the transformation. Now, I will say that the movie kind of took me for a loop because I was not really expecting both Tim and Millie to end up fusing at the end. So I really was like, okay, well, I think that they're gonna break up. And there is a common theme throughout the movie. Alison Brie, she has a line that she said multiple times in the movie that I feel like makes the most sense and is what the movie ultimately is about. And that is, if we don't split now, it'll only be harder later. And I felt like that line, it was so powerful, and she says it twice in the film. And so once we get to that final moment between them and we see Millie basically lying there and bleeding out, you think for that moment, okay, it's done. She was like, she said a cute little thing and mentioned like her Facebook post, and then that was it. And I was like, oh, okay. He is now free from this attachment, and that's it. No, because a couple minutes later, she wakes up, she's confused, and he ends up revealing to her it was the only way to make the bleeding stop. And they were basically fused together through their arms, which I was like, oh my God. And at first, she's like, oh my God, what did you do? And I think that's also really telling of the whole relationship and how Tim is really not willing to let her go at all. And that is a theme that goes on in the movie the whole time. You know, they're not really having a great sex life, and, you know, she kind of wants to have sex with him, and he's kind of like, you know, he's pretty closed off. And he just overall is not really being an attentive partner. And it seems like he kind of lost interest in her. And so after the whole thing with the hole, and they start feeling this force to bring them together, literally, physically together, you see how suddenly Tim literally cannot even be alone. He can't do it. He's completely dependent on her. She goes to work, he shows up there, and suddenly he's all over her. And there is a really incredible scene, and obviously this is the spoiler section. So the bathroom sex scene was something that was absolutely insane and had me gagged, and I am so happy that they went there and they were that extra about it because I needed that. It was such a great scene, and obviously, like I said, their chemistry is through the roof. Like, it's insane. This movie, while it is this really dark piece, it also is funny, it's romantic, it's hot, it's sexy, it's everything in one, and that's really why it works for me. Now, the one thing I was slightly disappointed about was our final transformation. So when they do end up fusing at the end, which was a shock because I did think that, you know, maybe Tim learned that he needs to let Millie go and they just need to be done. And she wanted him to go and live his best life. Obviously, he didn't want that. He kind of convinced himself he loves her so much he wants to be with her and he's okay with that. And Millie clearly really loves him, and she was like, "Are you sure you want this?" And he says yes. They begin to fuse. It is a very horny moment, you know, between them. Love that. I was really expecting, especially after coming off of the substance, that we would get some practical effects when it comes to the fusing between these two. Unfortunately, there is a lot of CGI that's used at the end towards the transformation. So that was a little bit disappointing just because I really love practical effects. You guys know I love body horror, and obviously with Possession being one of my favorites, you guys know I love practical effects. And obviously the substance, I mean, come on. I really wanted a practical effect moment. I don't really know what happened, if they just like couldn't make that happen. I don't think this moment looks bad with the CGI at all. It was just a little bit disappointing. I still like the ultimate transformation, but I will say had it been practical, I think it would have been a bigger moment that a lot of horror fans would have been like, whoa, you know, and everybody would have been like, that, we need that. I don't want to say there's no practical effects at all in this movie. There are definitely some, but obviously during this transformation, there was clearly CGI that was used. But I will say I did really love the transformation scene. Outside of that, I think that it was a really smart idea to use the Spice Girls song, Two Become One. Banger of a song. And I love the way that they tied it in with Millie's character and the Spice Girls vinyl being one of the first gifts that Tim got for her when, you know, their relationship was better. I loved that. I do ultimately think that they did not make the right choice, however. I do not think they should have fused, but that is the dangers and the power of codependency. This kind of codependency is too much for me to bear. The movie gave me a lot of anxiety throughout. I think this is going to scare a lot of people in a different way. I think while the film does have its scares that visually really work, I think emotionally and mentally this movie is going to scare you. It really, really is. I haven't stopped thinking about it. I had such a great time watching it. I'm happy I went on a little date with my friend Zero and we got to see it together. Literally together. Oh my God. But we didn't fuse, so that kind of sucks. Now that I'm thinking about it, if Zero and I fused, we would be literally the cutest thing ever. Are you kidding me? We'd be like the ultimate New York girl final boss. What? We would have ate that up. I am going to be giving Together 4.5 levs out of 5. I think that this film is very, very strong, and I am a sucker for the script. The entire dialogue is witty and snappy, and they have incredible chemistry, as I've already sang enough praises for. And truly, I do believe that Together is in my top 5 of this year already. This was an incredible film, so well acted. This is my kind of horror film. All right, you guys, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as it really helps me a lot. And be sure to click that little notification bell to be up to date every single time I upload. And let me know in the comments if you plan on going to see Together. If you already did, let me know what you thought about it. I'd love to talk about it. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.